So I took a hit, and I took a really big hit of this K2, and I heard a countdown. Immediate countdown started from 10, and it got started down, going down 9, 8, 7, and when we got to 3, it almost slowed down to 3, 2, and then it hit 1, and then I heard a noise, just like that machine that makes the noise in the hospital where your heart flats and it makes that noise. That's exactly how it went through my ears. And when I heard that, the first thing that happened, my lungs collapsed, and I couldn't inhale or exhale anymore. And I felt my heart beat, and I felt my heart take its last beat. And at that moment, I knew that I had about 30 seconds to a minute before I'm dead, because I already went through this 2 years ago. And I know that there's nothing I can do. And at the same time, I'm trying to grasp some air, but nothing. And as I'm sitting there, I can't tell my homie to pull over. I can't tell him that something's wrong. I just hit the side of the door in the car, and slowly I just started passing out. And the moment I passed out, my soul left my body, and I'm sitting there on this chair, and I can see myself in front of me in this car, dead. My homie hitting me on the chest, yelling something. Dima, what's wrong? But I'm not there anymore. And I look to the right, and there's this door, and from underneath of this door there's like a crack, and there's fire coming from there. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, well, this is it. This is where Dima ends. My name is Dima Romanov. I am currently living in Sacramento, California. Third year student at KDC, Kingdom Domain College. Before I gave my life to God, I was consumed with the idea of becoming a career criminal. And I reached a certain level at it. I became a drug dealer from a very young age. Eventually, I got into selling drugs, being a higher muscle for hire, robbing people, stealing, you name it, I did it. I grew up in a Christian family, somewhat. Dad was an alcoholic. Came from a mom came from a Christian family. Very Christian background, and those two, mom trying to drag us to church, dad has not really been a really good example as a man, or even as a father. I'd say my life started at age 1. I got sick with cancer. I got diagnosed with cancer. It's the type of cancer that is so rare that they don't have any studies on it today to even start treatment somewhere. So it starts your blood, eventually attacks your organs, and your flesh, you start to rot. For about 8 to 9 months, I was in the hospital where doctors, the flesh that started to rot on me, they start cutting it out of me to slow it down at least somehow, because they didn't know what to do. And within 9 months, they pretty much gave up. They used experimental drugs on me. They tried cutting it out of me. They did blood transfusions 3 to 4 times a week. And they did everything they could in their power, to the best of their ability, best of their knowledge, to keep me alive. Not to even save my life, but I think to just keep me alive for as long as they could. And about 10th month, they came to my mom and they were like, hey, he's gonna die. He has 8, tops 12 hours to live. Like, if I was you, the doctor said, if I was you to my mom, I'd go spend the last hours with him, because he's not gonna make it past tomorrow. Like, the cancer is hitting his heart now. And by tomorrow, it's gonna take over the heart completely. Organs are gonna shut down, and that's it. He's gonna die. There's nothing we can do. We're sorry. So my mom, instead of coming into the room with me, she decided to go to church uh, and ask the church to pray for me. And she went. She left the church. My dad, on the other hand, he was in the hospital at this time with some of the doctors and people at the hospital, guys at the hospital, drinking for my rest in peace, like I'm already dead. So my mom was in church and she was praying, and there's a woman stood up and she said she seen a vision of an angel walking into my room, and she said that this angel was carrying this suitcase of whatever it was, but she told my mom to go home because that angel came into my room to heal me. And so my mom did. My mom went home and passed out. And the next day she came to the hospital, and doctors got together and walked her to my room to pronounce me dead. And they walked into the room, and to their surprise, the cancer completely left my body. My body started to rot. Wounds started to heal, and that was the first miracle that God performed in my life. But at age 6, 7, my life started taking a turn into a direction of the streets and criminal background more. I grew up in Ukraine, Kherson, um, born and raised there up until 11. At the age of 6, I had my first cigarette and my first beer. By age of 7, I was already going to first class. I was going to school. It was about 3 kilometers, so about 2 miles walk to school. I was already walking with a pack of cigarettes in my pocket. Every day to school, after school, between classes, I would sneak out to smoke. At age 8, my life took a whole different turn to where I wanted nothing to do with Christianity, and I wanted to become. I got possessed almost by this idea that I'm going to become to be this famous, this successful criminal. Even though it sounds ridiculous now that I say it aloud, but that was my whole idea, and that whole perspective in my head came in at the age of 8, like I said, when one day me and 3 of my friends were walking from school, and we were walking past this alley, and there was these guys, early 20s maybe, drinking, and they jumped down from this building that we were passing, and they caught us, as 4 of them. And they said, "Hey, this is our territory, and for you to walk past this little alley, to walk through here, you have to pay." And there's 2 forms of paying. First form is you're gonna pay with cash. If you don't have that, then you'll pay with blood. So 3 of the friends I was with, they ran, and they caught me. And these guys, they picked me up, threw me against the wall of the building, and then this 4 of them began to beat on me. I don't know for how long exactly, but it was a while, because I woke up and passed out from the blows to the head multiple times. I threw up, I peed myself that night, and after they were done with me, they all took turns on peeing on me. I laid there for probably an hour to 2 hours before I was able to get enough strength to get up and to go home. And once I got enough strength, got up and I started walking home. Halfway home, I ran to this Christian family from the church that we went to. They had their kids with them. And when they seen me walking the way I looked, all in mud, blood, and vomit all over me, and they grabbed both of their kids and they started walking across the road from me. And they said, hey, they pointed a finger at me and they said to their kids, look at him. Don't ever go be like associate yourself with him, because that's what happens. Like, look at it. He deserved that. And to be honest, those words, they hurt me more than that beating did. So I kept on walking, and a few minutes later, uh, another woman from my mom's church, from the church we went to, she was walking with her son, and same exact thing. She seen me, she grabbed her kid, pointed her finger at me, and said, "Hey, he deserved it. Don't ever associate yourself with him." And man, that hurt me really bad. And I finally got to the building that we lived in, and there was this guy. His name was Vitaly. He lived on the third floor of our building. A big dude, had his own crew. Was respected by a lot, but the people feared by the criminals because he had his own crew. This crew, they held their own territory, and he was in front of the building. Um, he was in front of the building, just drinking, and had a bunch of girls with him. They were just hanging out with him and like 5, 6 of his friends. And when he seen me walking behind around the corner, he dropped everything. He ran over to me. He got down on his knees and he's like, "Dima, who did this to you?" And I broke into tears, and I was like, "These guys over there." He's like, "Why?" And I told him why. So next thing, what they did, he cleaned me up, bought me some ice cream, calmed me down. He's like, "Let's go. Show me what this happened. Show me where they're at." And as we were walking up to this building, we can hear these 4 dudes sitting there, 4 grown men sitting there, bragging to each other and drinking, and bragging to each other how they beat at me. And Vitaly looked at me and he said, "Hey, stay here, because what you don't want to see what we're about to do." And to be honest, what they did to me was nothing compared to what Vitaly and his friends did to them. They went in there and they began to beat on them. They broke their legs, arms. They dragged them out, put them on their knees in front of me, and they said, "Hey, begging for forgiveness, and you better make it sincere, because if you don't, and we don't like it the way, and he doesn't forgive you, this is it for you. You're never leaving this basement of this building. This is where you're gonna stay." And at this moment, I knew Vitaly. I knew that if he said something, he was gonna do it. He was gonna do it. So I said that, "Forgive them." And I remember when we were walking, he said, "Dima, you shouldn't have done that, because if the roles were reversed, they wouldn't have showed you the same mercy." And as we were walking home, and I was walking with them, I looked up at this man that I was nobody to him. And everybody could tell me that this was a bad guy, bad dude. He was a criminal. But to me, he was an example of a man, of example that never got at home from my dad, from nobody. That this is the man that I was gonna grow up to be. I was gonna grow up to be big. I was gonna grow up to strong. I was gonna grow up to, or I was gonna be the toughest guy, not just in the neighborhood, but wherever I went. And I was gonna dedicate my life to being that guy, to make sure that men like that never be able to hurt me again. So I gave about a few months to heal up. It was about 2 months, and I knew where his hangout spot was, where he hung out with his friends, and every morning where they meet up. And I want to say it was a Sunday morning. I went and found him, and I came up. I remember I came up, and one of his friends was sitting there. One of the boys of his boys was sitting there on the window of this building. He was smoking a cigarette, and I was like, "Hey, I wanna join you guys." And they started laughing at me, and they said, "Kid, you don't want to be like us." I said, "No, you are exactly what I want to be." And Vitaly realized that I was serious, and he said, "Look, kid, if you want to be one of us, you're gonna have to do what we do, when we do, how we tell you to do it, and there is no I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And I was like, okay, that's no problem. And one of them handed me a cigarette because at that moment I smoked cigarettes, but I didn't inhale it because I didn't know what inhaling was yet. So they taught me, the first thing they taught me is how to inhale a cigarette properly, how to smoke it, how to make it look good too while you're standing there. And then they started teaching me how to be the person that I wanted to be. They started teaching me how to break into places, steal, rob, how to lie properly, and how to get away with that. The first job they took me, the first place that they took me on to rob with them was a police station. Um, it was a successful job that we did, and I made a lot of money. We made a lot of money off that job, and I remember after we sold everything that we stole, we were sitting there. Vitaly was splitting the money between everybody, and one of the guys in the group said, "Hey, he's just a kid. He doesn't need that much." And Vitaly said he did the job just like everybody else. He took the risk like everybody else. That means he gets the same cut. And I was like, okay, this is exactly where I need to be. At so I was with them for about 3 years, learning to be this person, and Vitaly took really good. He was intentional about teaching me and pouring into me his knowledge of the streets of the criminal world, how the police work, how everything of that works. At the age of 11, so 2004, we came to America. Within the first, I think 6 months, I got arrested for the first time at age 12 for 3 simple assaults. Um, at age 13 or 14, I think it was 13, where I sold my first bag of drugs. And after that, everything just started to unravel for me more and more and more, because I realized that I can do this without anybody. I don't need anybody anymore because I already know how this world works. So at 13, I started selling, and from there it only got I got deeper into it. So at 13, I sold my first bag. By 15, 16, I started selling harder and harder drugs. I made a name on the streets by being the guy that can get you whatever you want to get. If it was drugs, if it was guns, if it was some stolen goods that you couldn't acquire illegally, I was the guy that everybody came to, that they knew I could get it illegally. And by 16, 17, I got into selling guns, stolen goods, started robbing, stealing. At 17, I want to say 17, was the first time my heart stopped. And it wasn't an overdose. It was my heart literally just stopped. There's a medical condition for a medical term for it. I'm not really sure what it's called, but it's something where your heart just out of nowhere stops. And the reason my heart stopped is because I was putting my body, my heart, through so much chemicals, through so much drugs, that it wasn't able to keep going. It wasn't able to keep up with my lifestyle. 17, we got this new strain of weed that just came in, and we were in the basement. I believe I was coming off some methamphetamine, and some other drugs that were already in my system. And by this time, I was already addicted to meth for about maybe a year and a half. I was sitting in the basement with 3 of my homies at that time, and where all suddenly everything around me, this darkness came into the room, and it was like a physical but also like a demonic darkness, where everything around me, I couldn't put a finger on it what it was, but I knew something was wrong, because the moment that darkness came into the room, it started to be hard to breathe, hard to see, hard to move. Like it was almost like I was somewhere else, but I was still in my body. And I looked at my homie across me, and I was like, "Hey, I need to go outside. I need to get some fresh air. Something ain't right." And he's like, Dima, you just freaking out. I was like, no, dude, I need to go outside. Something ain't right. And I started going up, leaving. We were in the basement of this house, and I started walking up, and my knees gave out, and he caught me. One of my homies, he caught me. He's like, yo, you good? And I was like, yeah, everything's good. I just missed a step or something, you know? And I started walking up, and I was holding onto the rail from both sides so I wouldn't fall back, because like with every step, my knees and my strength and my body started giving out more and more, to where I had one step left to the level of the house, where I just dropped. And my homie, his name is Yuri, he caught me in his hands, and he dragged me out in the kitchen, and he put me on the floor. And the first thing they did, first they went through the house, they hid all the bongs, all the liquor, all of whatever was illegal, they hid all of that. Then after that he proceeded to do a CPR on me, which didn't work. He did that for so long that he fractured my, whatever this is called over here, and bruised it to a point where after I had a bruise for about 4 months, but I was dead. I died. My heart died. They didn't know what to do. They started freaking out. So the plan was to wrap me in the rug, throw me in the trunk, and drive me out somewhere and throw me out in some gravel road. And the other guy, there's one other kid that was there, he was gonna call 911, and he dialed 911. And the moment he dialed 911, actually, he said that's when I woke up. He said they said it literally looked like the life came back into me. So I took the last step, and I just dropped dead into my homie's arms. And I'm not really sure what happened next and how long I was dead, but while I was dead and my spirit left my body, my soul left my body, I was in this this place where it was almost like it wasn't hell, it wasn't heaven, it was in somewhere in between, where everywhere around me it was just darkness, and I was just in the middle of this space, this emptiness. And while I was there, I heard voices, and I heard my mom's prayers. And then the next voice I heard was a voice of a man, and this man was pleading for my life. And at first I thought it was my dad, but I know my dad's voice, my earthly dad. And the way he was sobbing, the way he was crying and pleading for, interceding for my life, I've never heard, to this day, I've never heard a man cry the way this guy was crying. And that continued for a while, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. And then the way he ended his prayer was, Father, don't let my death be in vain in his life. And the moment he said those words, that's when I came back to life. One of my homies standing there with the phone open, the other one standing over me, the third one's like, what happened? They're like, Dima, you died. You know, you were dead. You were dead. We literally were thinking of wrapping you in the rug and driving you out there. And at first I got mad at them, but then as I was driving home, I was like, I would have done the same thing. You know, I would have done exactly the same thing. Like, you can't help me. I'm dead. So like, I'm not even mad at you guys. Like, it is what it is. Like, we know exactly what we're signing up for, and we know the consequences afterwards. And this is the consequence. Like, if it would have ever happened to any of you, like, I would have done exactly the same thing. Like, I wouldn't call the cops. Like, I can't help you, but I ain't going to prison because of you guys, you know, because of your decisions. And that didn't stop me. That didn't even scare me. That only motivated me. For some reason, motivated me to get deeper into this world, where I started getting my hands on guns, and I started selling that. And I got consumed deeper by this idea of becoming the person that I wanted to become, this criminal. By 18, I already made a reputation for myself in the city that I was living at, and that I'm the guy. This is my city. This is my territory. By next few years, I only expanded my reputation. I started getting some guys. I had got my own house. I got this and that. Like I got everything that I strive to get to achieve. And around 18 and 19, this 2012, this new synthetic drug came out on the streets called K2. It was a synthetic drug. It looked like weed, but the high was more intense. It was more. It didn't last as long, but it was more intense. And most drugs went dry in the state, in the city that I was living in, because main drug dealers that were bringing these drugs into the city, there were 3 or 4 of them got caught. So this was like the only option I had to keep my high going. And so I tried it, and we were driving on this gravel road. It was around 9 p.m. It was already dark, summertime. I think it was June, July. 85th Street. So I took a hit, and I took a really big hit of this K2. And I heard a countdown, immediate countdown started from 10. And it started going down 9, 8, 7. And when we got to 3, it almost slowed down to 3, 2, and then it hit 1. And then I heard a noise, just like that machine that makes the noise in the hospital where your heart flats and it makes that noise. That's exactly how it went through my ears. And when I heard that, the first thing that happened, my lungs collapsed. And I couldn't inhale or exhale anymore. And then I felt my heart beat, and I felt my heart take its last beat. And at that moment, I knew that I had about 30 seconds to a minute before I'm dead, because I already went through this 2 years ago. And I know that there's nothing I can do. And at the same time, I'm trying to grasp some air, but nothing. And as I'm sitting there, I can't tell my homie to pull over. I can't tell him that something's wrong. I just hit the side of the door in the car, and slowly I just started passing out. And the moment I passed out, my soul left my body, and I'm sitting there on this chair, and I can see myself in front of me in this car, dead. My homie hitting me on the chest, yelling something. Dima, what's wrong? But I'm not there anymore. And I look to the right, and there's this door. And from underneath of this door, there's like a crack, and there's fire coming from there. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, well, this is it. This is where Dima ends. And I realized that this is me, that there isn't going back. There isn't saying I'm sorry. There isn't fixing anything. I am who I am right now, and that's it. This is where I am. This is where my life ends. And at this moment, as I'm sitting there and this fear starts coming over me, this book in front of me opens. And this book, it felt like years went by. Day by day, I can see my life on this book. And it gets to about a quarter way, and then it flips, and it's just blank after that. And I realized that this book right now, that there was everything I've seen, there's not one good deed that I did for me to come back, for God to save me for any of it. Like, there's nothing. And I heard steps from the other side of this door. And the closer they got, the louder they got, the more fear grasped me, because I knew who was coming from the other side, and it wasn't God. And I remember I prepared myself for that door to open, because I knew there isn't, that's it. Like, once I'm past that door, there isn't any coming back. And I remember I seen that handle churn, and I was back. I got back into my body, and I woke up. And my homie sitting there in the car. He's like, dude, what happened? You just died. And I tried explaining to him what happened. He's like, hey, you're just tripping. I was like, bro, don't tell me I'm tripping. Like, I've literally just died. That year in 2012, 2,200 people died from this K2. I was one of those 2,200, but I was the only one that actually came back. Everybody else died the same thing. The heart just stopped. For the next few years, for the next 2 years again, I didn't stop. I just kept on going deeper. I started going to different states, meeting different people. People in different states started hearing about me. They wanted to come down and meet this guy, Dima, that everybody's hearing about on the streets. And 2015, I get in a car accident at 55 miles an hour. Head-on collision. I'm driving a Honda Accord, two-door Honda Accord, 90, 91, 92. It was one of my homies' car I borrowed for that night. With 3 other people in the car. One other guy and 2 girls that I picked up that night, that met. And we were driving back to my house, where I don't know exactly what happened at that moment, where I came out to the upcoming traffic and I hit a Chevy Silverado 2500 head-on collision. That was the 3rd time I died. I came to my sense about, I don't know, half hour to an hour I was out before I came back. And I tried to open the door. I looked over. I lost all my memory at that time. When I came back to myself, I couldn't remember my name. I didn't know who these people were in the car. All I knew is that I'm in a car accident. Something happened. And I tried to open the door, but the door got stuck. So I hit it with my shoulder and I fell out. I fell out on my side and I'm laying there on my side in my lungs. I punctured my lung with my ribs. And I can feel my lungs are filling with blood because it's starting to get hard and hard to breathe. And I'm thinking to myself, if I don't get enough strength right now to get up, that's it. I'm not gonna get up at all. And I remember someone from the back came up, grabbed me by my shoulders and stood me up. And I leaned over and I started coughing up blood that was filling up my stomach and my lungs. And I turned around and there was nobody. And I got arrested and spent a few weeks in the hospital. And then the moment they could transfer me from the hospital to jail, they put me in solitary confinement. And the second night I woke up the second night at 2, 3 in the morning, and it was really quiet in the room. It was so quiet, like it was almost impossible to describe the peace that was in the cell. And as I sat up, I realized there's someone sitting to my right. And I tried to look to my right, but the light that was coming off his face was so bright I couldn't even turn my eyes that way. And it was God the Father. He came down into my cell. He grabbed me by my right hand and he said, "Son, let me show you what was supposed to happen to you." And he took me back 3 weeks, and I'm standing there on the side of the road on my car accident, and he shows me, he says, "None of you survived this car accident. None of you were supposed to live." He said, "But in the last second I stepped in. And that way you can be a warning and a testimony to others." And in this cell, I was sitting there in this cell, and I remember telling God, if everybody makes it out this car accident, like, I'm gonna give my life to you. It's like, let these walls be witnesses, and if not, then I'll end up back in this cell. A few years later, I ended up back in that cell because I didn't keep my word. I went through. They were trying to give me 40 years for that car accident, and $2.5 million of fines. So I get arrested for this car accident. I do a little bit of time and I get out. And the moment I get out, the same day, I call my probation officer. I was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to come see you because I have to leave the state." And they're like, she's like, you can't leave the state because it's like that's a part of your probation. You can't leave the state. I was like, look, well, you can arrest me or put a warrant out, but I'm leaving for 3 to 4 weeks. I'm not coming back. So you figure out what you want to do with that. But I am going. So she is like, whatever, I'll approve it. She approves it, and I get in the car, and I was actually already called ahead, and I was going to meet one of my dealers in Colorado. And I remember as I'm driving, God comes to the car, and he's like, son, what are you doing? Like, look what you just went through. Like, why? And I remember driving the car, and I was like, look, I was like, I'm very appreciative of what you did for me, like saved my life and got me out of doing all that time. But I was like, I don't have room for you in my life. I'm too gangster for God in my life right now. I have people relying on me. I got a business to keep going, you know. I got a reputation to uphold. And I was like, you know exactly what I had to do to get all of this to this point. Like, I can't just give it up for you. Like, I can't just drop this and and that's it. Like, you know what I had to do to get this. And I remember God said, okay, I'll let it be your way. And I physically felt God step away. I literally physically felt him leave, like, my side. And 3 weeks later, an angel woke me up from me choking on my own blood in my own bed. I put my nose through so much drugs that it opened up an artery, a hole in my nose, where when I passed out and I finally crashed, I my lungs and my stomach filled up with so much blood that if it wasn't him waking me up and like literally physically saying, Dima, wake up, and getting me up, I wouldn't wake up. And I only got deeper. At this moment, I was already living in this depression. I was very, very angry. I was filled with, there was nothing but rage inside me. And I couldn't figure out what this rage was because I had everything I ever dreamed of. I achieved the goals I wanted. I'm known. There's not a person that in this state that doesn't know who I am. Everybody is scared of me. This is exactly the person I want to be, but I'm not fulfilled. I'm not satisfied with this. And I fall into this depression for the next 4 years, almost 3 to 4 years. I live in this depression where I start mixing 5, 6, 7 different drugs at once. All kinds of drugs that you're not supposed to mix every day, just to numb myself, not just physically but mentally too, because I didn't want to be awake. My favorite part of the day was when drugs affected me and knocked me out for a few hours. That was the only time that I was like, okay, other than that. And my life continued. I only got deeper on the streets, more fame, more reputation, more drugs, more power, more influence. Comes 2018, October 6th it was. I'm in a gas station. I'm waiting for my homie to come pick me up. I was a few blocks away from my house, so I decided to walk to the gas station. I called my homie. I was like, hey, let's get high. He said, let's do it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to the gas station by my house. I was like, pick me up from there. As I'm in line buying a pack of cigarettes, buying some other stuff, I get a call from one of my brothers. He says, hey, Dima, Anya died. Anya is our little cousin. I practically raised that girl. She's like a sister to me. Me and her have birthdays a day apart. We celebrate birthdays together. We're very close with her. She's 17 at this moment. And I was like, bro, if you ever call me and joke around like that again, I was like, I'm not gonna look at the fact that you're my brother. I was like, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna kick your teeth in because it's not funny. And he said, Dima, it's not a joke. He said, we're going to the house right now. I was next in line and I had everything in my hands. I didn't even pay for anything. I just walked out. My homie came, picked me up, and I got in the car, and he knew her too, and I was like, Maddie, Anya died, and I broke for the first time. I didn't even know how long. Probably good 15 to 16 years. For the first time, I actually cried. Because I promised myself that no man, no one will ever see my tears, not even me. And for the first time, I broke into tears like I've never cried before in my life, because the pain of realizing that she's actually gone was something I can't explain, and I don't even want anybody to understand that. And when we went to her house, the authorities came, they took her body, and the next day we were cleaning out, organizing her room, cleaning out her room. We found her diary book, and I sat on her bed, on the side of the bed, and I opened it, and the first page, there was like 20 things on there what she wanted to do. But on top of this, the top of the list was number 1. It said 2 words, and when I read those two words, they hurt me more than I've ever been hurt in my life. And it said, "Find God." And at that moment, I went outside, and from 2 p.m. till 8, 9 p.m., I sat in the rain in front of my house just crying, because I realized that she's been around me for past 16 years of her life, ever since she was a baby. She's seen me sell drugs. She's seen me hurt people, deceive people. She's seen me spill blood and fight. She's seen me be this person. But never have I ever told her about God or Jesus. And at this moment, something shifted to where I realized that this is how other people feel. Because there are people that lost family members for the drugs that I sold, from the guns that I sold, from gun violence, from people that I've hurt, put in the hospital, the people that I've robbed, people that I've hurt personally. And I realized this is something that a lot of people went through because of me, because of my choices, my lifestyle, my advice to people. And her too. Maybe she would have been here today. I thought to myself, if I was a better person, if I was a better example. And for the first time, I was sitting there, when my brother sitting there in front of the house, and I was like, God, I don't want to be this person anymore. I never want to be this influence in anybody's life again. Help me. And after that, I started looking for a way out from off the streets. But at the same time, I understood there's no way I'm going to get off, because for the past 20 years, I've literally dedicated my life to make sure that the only thing I know is the streets, the being a criminal. I made sure that I don't have no family to rely on. I have no friends. I have no one in my life, but my life was my purpose. And my purpose at that time was becoming this criminal that I strived to be. And I did everything. I crossed every border there was to cross. I pushed out everyone out of my life. That at this moment where I understood that if God didn't step in, there was gonna be nothing I can do about it. And I tried. I somehow tried giving my customers away to other drug dealers. But I understood that these customers, they're my way of making money right now, because that's the only thing. Nobody wants to hire me, because everybody knows who I am. Everybody knows of me and what I do and who I am. So no, not one single person, not one company in town, in the state that would hire me, give me a job. So for the next 8 months, I lived of just, it's such depression that I was just constantly, the moment I woke up, I started getting high, and to the point to about 20 hours a day, that's all I did was got high. until my body would just crash and pass out for those 3 to 4 hours until I would wake up and I'd start all over again. And it was May 2nd, I think it was May 2nd, yeah, 2019. I was sitting in the Jeep with three other guys, and all of them had a specific type of drugs. It was different. Everybody had different stuff. And we're just sitting there getting high, and I remember this presence came in, and it was God's presence. And God asked me 2 questions that day. He said, "Son, are you happy where you at in life right now? And why do you do what you do? Like, are you happy with your life right now? And why do you do what you do?" And I realized, I was like, God, I do this because I don't know anything else. Am I happy? Absolutely not. I didn't even know what happiness is. Like, I don't think I've ever even felt joy. I don't even think I've ever laughed at this moment in my life. I don't even remember me laughing as a kid. Because the life that I lived, there was no joy, there was no love, there is no light. There's nothing but evil, sorrow, pain, and tears. That's all you live in that life. That's all I know. And I remember that night, I came home around 11 p.m. And for the first time in a long time, I got down on my knees, and my exact prayer, I didn't even pray. I told God how it's gonna be. And I said, God, I'm gonna give you, I was like, I don't know if you're still there or not. I was like, but here's the deal. I'm gonna give you one last chance to do something with my life. Take me the way I am and do something with me. I was like, and I will serve you 1,000, 10,000 times more. I was like, than I serve the world. I was like, if not, I was like, I will give myself to the world like never before. The world will find out. The whole world will know who Dmitry Romanov is. I was like, I will make sure that happens. I was like, and you know me, once I set my mind on something, I was like, nothing will stop me. I was like, I will achieve that point, one way or the other. I was like, and I will never look back. I will never look back in church. I will never look back to you. I will never ask for your help again or intervention in my life. I was like, so like, if you're still there, I was like, help me. If not, then I'm out there. I was like, but there isn't gonna be this lukewarm Dima where I'm trying to be good, but at the same time I can't because I have the bad side. I was like, that's never gonna be me. I was like, if you take me and do something in my life, I'm also never gonna be that person that just comes to church for 2 hours a week and sits there and calls that a Christian life. I was like, that will never be my Christian life. I was like, you will use me, you will take me, you will put me up front for me to be a testimony to show people that, hey, he did it in my life, he can do it in yours. And next day, it was actually a Thursday. On Friday, I make it by some miracle. I make it to a youth service. And as I'm standing there, I'm all the way in the back. I'm all the way in the back of the service. I'm like the last one. Everybody else is up front. And it's the end of service. I don't even know what the service was about. I was out of it. I was still high. And I remember the youth pastor, his name's Serge Mazan, and man of God, I thank God for him. He didn't even make an altar call. He just said, hey, if there's anybody here that wants to like dedicate or rededicate their life to Christ, like just raise your hand, I'll pray for you. And I stood there, looked around, and I'm like, I'm the only one in the back. I was like, so nobody's gonna see me raise my hand anyways. So I raised my hand, and 30 seconds later, he's like, you know what? I changed my mind. Why don't you come up front here? I'll pray for you if you raised your hand. And I was like, this fool, he's trying to fight. But I was like, and then I hear this voice. He's like, are you scared? And I'm like, I ain't scared. Dima ain't scared nobody. He's like, I don't know. Looks like you're scared. I was like, I'll show you. And I just started walking head high, started walking all the way up front. And when I made it to the front, I was like, oof, you got me. I got down on my knees and Serge laid his hands on me and he started praying for me he started praying specifically for my life to be given to God. And the moment he started praying, I don't know, I don't even remember exactly what he was praying for, but the moment he laid his hand and started praying, I literally physically felt the freedom in my life, where I was hunched over on my knees and I felt like this 5-ton rock fall off my shoulders, and it pushed me back a little bit, and it was so easy to breathe. I felt alive. I don't know exactly what happened, but the next morning when I woke up, I felt different, where every addiction that I've had, drugs, cigarettes, alcohol, I mean, you name it, pornography, masturbation, I was set free from everything. Depression, anxiety, fear, just literally there was nothing. And I woke up and I remember I went outside, and for the first time in my life, it was pleasant to be outside. It was pleasant to be alive. I felt joy. I felt happy. I felt good to be alive. I wasn't angry. I wasn't raged. I wasn't raging within me. I was just happy to be alive. And I walked back into the house, and I went straight back to my room. I got down on my knees and I was like, God, please make sure that I'm never back into that life. I never want to go back there. So you do something with me and use me. So I tried to, at this moment, when I give my life, I start going to youth services, but there's no relationship with anybody besides the youth pastor Serge. So it was very hard for me to go to church every Sunday. 4 months later, I get baptized in the Holy Spirit at a youth camp. It's called Amplified Youth Camp. They do it every year in August. It was actually August 9th of 2019 that I get baptized in the Holy Spirit. And for the next year, till August, end of August, from August till next August of next year, 2020, my life was literally going to work and coming home and spending after I got home from work from, I don't know, 2-3 p.m. in the afternoon till I went to bed, spending time in the Word and in prayer in the room, because I literally had no friends, no family to turn to, no friends to talk to, no relatives. My life, my complete whole life of everything that I knew, like, was gone. And there was even the closest friends at that moment that I had that I considered my friends, they just disappeared out of my life. And the reason I think why is because, like, when I gave my life to God, and God told me, he said that, he's like, if you give your life to me and you say yes to me, he said, I'm gonna strip you from everything, from your old friends, your possessions. He said, everything that you've ever bought with that money and that world that came from that lifestyle, he said, I will strip you of it down to the boxers. And I think it was like 5-6 months after I gave my life to God, I was actually working with this guy at tree service and this big branch, and I was wearing the last piece of shorts and boxers that I bought from that life, because at this moment I didn't really have a good income coming into buying the new, so I was just wearing that. And I remember this big branch came down and cut my shorts over here and just ripped my shorts and my boxers off. And I stood there and I remember those words that God said, I'm going to strip you down to your boxers, like, literally. And I was like, well, I guess there goes that, like the last piece of boxers that I bought. Then a year later, end of August, beginning of September, God called me to come here to California to KDC. When I came here to KDC, like, physically I was set free, but spiritual, mentally, there was still a lot of anger issues in my life, a lot of trust issues, a lot of self-dependence, self-righteous, self-centered, because the only thing I've ever knew is depend on myself and trust myself, trust nobody else. So when I came here, God started um, working personally on my heart to open up, be vulnerable, uh, be another thing that he worked on is to serve people. And I never, I always heard about people serving people, but like being in the world, I never understood that. Like, why would I do something for someone when I don't get anything out of it? And then I never realized the joy that comes from just serving someone, just from helping them out, serving, doing something for someone else was just an incredible amount of joy that I received. Like, I love serving people right now. Like, whatever you need help with something, I'll put my work day away just so I can come and help you in ministry, in school, your personal life. Like, I love to serve people. I love to. Another thing, I've spent my whole life of taking from people, and it was, when I say this, I'm not trying to promote it, but the biggest sensation that I've ever got was taking from people. Because when you take from people in the world and nobody can stop you, you're at this level where you understand that not the law can't touch you, nobody can touch you. And it was such a experience every time that I got this fulfillment from taking from people, knowing nobody can do, until the Lord told me to give to someone. I was here in KDC, and when I gave to someone, like I blessed someone financially, and it was a good amount. And when I received, when I gave, and I gave willingly, I gave with joy in my heart, and I seen that me blessing that person was something that they were waiting for, that praying for, and the reaction on their face. I was standing on the side just observing, and the joy that brought me to where I was like, Lord, I want to give more. Like, give me the ability to bless people more. Like, bless them more. Like, and at this time, like, I want to be the answer, like, in other people's lives, even if it's through not just my testimony, but through serving them, by blessing them financially, physically, spiritual, whatever that looks like. I was like, let me be a blessing to others. Like, I really, everything that I was like, strip me of that. I was like, I don't want not even a single percentage to there to be of that person, Dima. I want this new Dima that came to you. I want you to, for him to be a loving, caring, like a good person. And that came a lot with serving people and stepping over the, I'm not getting anything in return, which I was okay with. Spiritually, he freed me from anger, where I was, I lived my life with fear and rage just at the world, at the Christianity, because Christianity hurt me really bad. When I came here to FFM, I actually seen, God showed me the actual, what the image of Christianity is supposed to look like. And it wasn't until I came here to FFM where people heard my testimony and they didn't close the doors for me. But instead of closing the doors for me, like to their houses, that they were like, hey, come to our house. We want to hear more. What God did in your life, how God brought you out of that life. And for me, that was such a different experience. I was like, whoa, this is something new. Most of the time when people hear that I came from the streets, everybody's like, hey, stay away from us. But here it was, God's like, this is what I intended for Christianity to be. This is what Jesus in people looks like right here. And that alone, I think that people were more open to me, made me want to even go deeper with God, go further with God, just find out the whole nature of God's heart, and his heart in people, and his services, and just everyday daily life. To, today I'm not angry, I'm not anxious, I don't live in fear. I can enjoy life. I don't have to depend on me, because I know the Lord has everything provided for me. I don't get tormented at night like I used to, and something that God taught me is my identity and the authority I have over these demonic spirits that used to come and torment me every night from age 7 to 27 throughout the 20 years of my life. Where like it doesn't scare me, where I don't have to be afraid to go to sleep or be somewhere alone where I have to, you know, just worry about that type of stuff. It's freedom. Like honestly, it's such a freedom, it's such joy to just be here at this place and just to really find God's heart and for Him to just pour out into you and reveal who you are in Him, your identity, your authority, that you are loved, you are cared, that no matter what you did. Because you see, like when I died the first time, the way I looked at it is that there's nothing in my life. When I seen that book of life, there was nothing to save me for. But what God showed me, what He was trying to show me, and I didn't understand it until recently, like a year ago, I think He revealed that. He said, Dima, my whole point was to show you that even though there was nothing to save you for, I still loved you. Like you didn't do anything wrong. Like I want you to know that part of your life. He's like, I didn't show you that to show you that there's nothing to save you for. I showed you that none of this matters. That it hasn't changed my opinion on you, how much I love you and how much I care for you, how much I want to reach your heart and just for you to realize that I'm here for you, you know? And I think that was one of the biggest breakthroughs in my life. My name's Dima, and this is my story for His glory. Amen.